What is this pinwheeling nonsense? Is this my fault? Am I streaming something that's like causing this to happen?
I don't know. I haven't even looked at the YouTube
Uh,
page.
oh, and we're live. It is Saturday, March 20th. 5:04 p.m. and we're late because of my inadequacies as a driver.
You did fine, Kate. It's
I
just,
mean, we're
it's
only
just,
4 minutes late.
yeah,
Yes,
it's fine. But you
okay.
can see why I find it stressful.
I did have like big sweat starting to bead like right here on my shiny little cheeks. That I'm like,
I like the part that John was laughing, though. That
yeah.
makes me happy.
Yes, I know.
John, if you can hear me, you should do that every time, Kate. Because I should sit here patiently and you should gin up pressure. And between the two of us, we'll make her sweat.
Yes. He's like, now John's laughing again. Yes, this is great. Well, it's a good thing that I already have a complex, because if I didn't, you guys would give me one. But it is Saturday and it is just us, and Ben is at the cabin in the woods, all bundled up, but next to a roaring fire.
In the deep state hoodie.
In the deep state hoodie. You do look a little, somebody said you're looking Unabomber chic. I think that.
Well, but this isn't Unabomber, because this has got, it's an NSA hoodie with an FBI patch and a CIA patch. And the rule about the deep state hoodie is I will attach the patch of any federal government security agency if it is given to me by a current employee of that agency. The hoodie itself was given to me by Susan Hennessy when she was a employee of the National Security Agency. And so if you are an employee of the deep state and you can acquire a deep state patch, I will attach it to the deep state hoodie.
I want to say this is very funny to me because I experience a similar amount of grief for various types of swag that I get at events or things like that. But there is in my area of academia, there is this whole culture of people who will refuse to of how to repurpose Facebook paraphernalia and to how to take the patch off or put a patch on over it or do something like that, like in the version of your hoodie right now, because you can definitely not walk around holding a Facebook. It's maybe a really nice water bottle. It's stainless steel and it's insulated and this is really great. And you don't really want to throw it away, but it has Facebook all over it. So you're how do you fix it? And the answer
So
is
what do you do? So you cover it up? Stickers.
Yeah, stickers is usually the answer. No one ever donates it. I mean, maybe they do, but yeah. Anyway, so tell us what's going on. How's the cabin in the woods?
We are not allowed to have fun anymore.
Oh yeah, we have to start the actual show. We're not allowed to have fun anymore. But in lieu of fun, you got us.
Yeah, we'll have to do. So, Kate, I have a serious matter to discuss with you. We are exactly 7 days away from our 365th show, which no.
Oh no, seven. Oh, seven.
Yeah, because 8 plus 7.
Did you not see the? But we're going to celebrate. We started on March 25th, so I thought we were going to celebrate on March 25th.
Well, so this is the question. This is the first question that we have. Do we celebrate the 1-year anniversary of In Lieu of Fun on our 365th episode, or on the anniversary of
I'll redo
March 25th?
I will redo the poll. 65th anniversary of the this is the 365th show, or March 25th. Okay. There we go.
All right, so there's one question, but here's another question, which is,
It's a very
got
unbiased poll. You should look at it, Ben.
got Seders coming up.
Oh
Um,
yeah, there's that too. What? I mean, if we
I
celebrated
am
on the
I'm going
27th,
to be
we
the
have
first
Passover.
person to vote for the 365th show because I believe in simple round numbers. But in any event, we have a question of what to do on Seder nights
Well,
because
is there a utility like function like in create in like one or the others of these? Like, will it make people's lives easier for Passover to do it on the
well,
365th show?
no, because the anniversary we do it the same day every time, same time every day. I am going to suggest that we do time shifting on the Seder evenings so that we're not doing it in the evening, and that way, like we could do noon
We did
in
that
lieu of
last
fun.
time.
Is that what we did?
Yeah, we just did it an hour earlier. You
It's gonna it
wanted
would
to
have
still
to
do the show,
it would
and
have
I
to
was
be
like, sure.
it would have to be more than an hour earlier. It'd have to be like 3 hours earlier because Seder usually starts. But
Oh wait,
can we plan on?
no, we
I
didn't.
don't
It
think
wasn't
I don't.
Passover. It was something else. No,
No,
I'm
it was
like,
Yom Kippur.
it
So
was
the
Yom
issue with
Kippur.
Yom
Sorry,
Kippur is just doing it before sundown.
that's what it
But
was.
Seder is different because like
Mm-mm.
you have to cook for it.
No,
Um,
I'm doing a whole Seder thing. I don't want to interrupt that. So we can.
yeah. So why don't we plan on like an early afternoon day both days? Um,
Are you
and
celebrating Seder on Passover? Like I don't know, because I'm doing it like I think
yeah,
a
we do.
couple weeks later.
Well, no, we do it. It's the first 2 nights of Passover. Um, and
Wait,
no, it is not Sun.
John's laughing at me again. Wait, we always go to our friend's house in April and like celebrate Passover as if it was the same day. What? Is that not a thing that people do? Oh, apparently that's not a thing
It's
that people do.
something that some
I'm
people do, but
sorry.
it's the traditional observance of Passover is the first 2 nights. Um, and so my suggestion is, I think it's Saturday and Sunday evenings. Next week we do kind of midday, early afternoon.
Okay, that's great for me.
Um,
2 o'clock.
let's keep the time open for now because I have to plan when Tammy and I are cooking, and I'll work around that.
Okay.
Okay.
This is okay. It sounds good.
So, or do you have any items of business we should talk about before we go on to other things?
No, I should probably go get a brisket though. That would be a fun thing to do. It's to like do a Passover. I haven't gotten invited to anything yet because it's the whole year last year was a pandemic and all of our friends moved away and there's been all this other stuff. So like I don't know. Usually we go to New Jersey for Passover, and it's like a whole thing. I don't know.
Well, all right. So, what do we have? I don't have the calendar with me here. So, what do we have on the calendar for this week?
That would be really great if my calendar wasn't beach balling at the moment. But like I've been having. Oh, here it goes. There we go. We have only Daryl West on Wednesday. Wait a second. How do you know Daryl West? I didn't put that on the calendar. How do you know Daryl West?
Daryl West is my boss.
Oh,
He's the vice president of governance studies at Brookings,
oh.
and
He was my public policy professor at Brown.
I am a senior fellow in governance studies at Brookings.
I mean, I
and,
know that, Ben, but like
and
I just
hence
haven't
I
followed.
report to Daryl West, who is also a good friend, and
He's amazing.
he is. We were chatting the other day, and I told him he should come on in lieu of fun, and so I stuck him on the calendar.
That's so awesome. When I was my first summer away from home in college, do you know Scott Allard by any chance? I don't know if you know him.
No.
He has got a bunch of Brookings, but this was a Brookings project. It was funded by Brookings, and it was the first time I'd ever encountered Brookings, and I was a sophomore in college, and I did phone banking, calling all doing calls and measuring all services that had received federal money for homeless for homeless services or like kind of low income services to every single institute that had gotten one. And like it was like me and like 10 other people, and we would all sit in this little tiny room, and Daryl West would walk by, and we'd all be like, ooh, Daryl West. And then like we'd sit with our little headsets on and phone banks. But anyways, that's how I know Daryl West. He is not going to remember that at all, and we're not
All
going to
right.
talk
Well,
about
we're gonna raise it with him.
it. No,
So
no, 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 no,
the
no.
question, Mike Godwin, is why are you reciting the four questions both in English and in translated Aramaic? And for those of you who don't know, the four questions in the chat, the four questions are not in Hebrew. They are in
Aramaic.
in Aramaic, and Mike Godwin is introducing them into the chat for reasons that are utterly unclear to me.
Yeah, I don't know why he is. I think it's because I was talking about Passover, and I'm not really a Jew, so it's just kind of like this really fun, like. But I do think that I don't know, it's one of the most meaningful holidays and the most beautiful kind of marriages of like religious and philosophy and kind of like thoughtfulness and like kind of a lovely tradition and like almost a secularism to the tradition that I've experienced. I've like actually done a lot of various different types of religion celebrations, including Baha'i and Muslim and everything else. But I think it's like I love Passover. It's like it's kind of great.
Passover is a very cool holiday,
right?
And it is a very unusual holiday, and it is one of the most. It has the unusual benefit among Jewish holidays in particular of being rather accessible. You can know very little about Judaism and still find it moving, which is actually not true of a lot of traditional Jewish liturgy, which is, relatively obscure, and the cost and the sort of entry points to it are rather difficult. But the Passover Seder is remarkable in having a lot of quite universalist symbolism and having a very tactile relationship between food and items and
I love
taste
that.
and smell
I hadn't thought about that. You're right. It is so tactile. Like the
it's very
story
tactile.
is so tied to like the bitter
and,
root and like the
and
dry bread. Yeah.
And all of the senses are implicated in it. There is sound, there is smell, there is taste, there is things that are touched and felt. It's a very interesting piece of ritual, and I think one of the reasons it has kind of, in a way that most of traditional Judaism never breaks through to mass culture, although Jewish culture does, Jewish religious practice almost never does. But the Seder is a little bit of an exception because it's unusually accessible for traditional Judaism.
Yeah.
And that's cool. Despite the fact that the sacred text associated with it is written in Aramaic, which is not true of most Jewish liturgy.
Yeah. I never knew that. That's so cool to learn. Well, that is awesome. That is coming up next weekend. We have Daryl West on Wednesday, but that means we have Monday and Tuesday to figure out, and then we have to figure out what to do with the 25th, 26th, and 27th. If we're gonna have the In Lieu of Fun on, what did we say, 2?
So
One,
we
2?
have. I'm sorry.
1 or 2?
Yeah, it's both the first 2 nights. I think they're Saturday and
No. I mean 1 or 2 p.m.
Let's tentatively say 1.
Okay.
So, all right. Mark Elias, whose presence has been repeatedly requested, has said he has said he will work with us to do someday this week, but I don't know which one.
Okay.
And so I will follow up with his people tomorrow. We also have there are several others that I have listed at home. Kevin Cruz,
Yeah.
I forget who else that people have asked me to work on that I'm going to do, and I did not know that Jamal Green has a new book out, but Andrew
He
McCurdy's
does.
suggestion for that is a great idea.
I am a little bit conflicted because even though I think we have like a nice Chinese wall up, I don't know if that's an actual politically correct term I'm allowed to use anymore. But anyways, we have this nice construction up. But like Jamal is the one of the chairs of the oversight board, and I am actively covering some things that the oversight board is
Yeah,
doing. And
but
so
that's
I
okay.
think that's
You're
okay.
as long as you're not as long as we're not approaching him in his oversight board capacity, but in his Columbia Law School capacity,
Okay.
and you're not in your reporter capacity, but in your in lieu of fun capacity, that doesn't give me any trouble at all.
Okay. Great. I just wanted to be transparent about that. It was worth mentioning. I don't like, I just, I feel like all of these things are soft rules rather than hard rules. And so it's always a good idea to like kind of have a conversation about them. But yeah, that should be fine. I would love to have Jamal on this week. I can text him, and see if, or like, sorry, send him an email and see if he can do something on Monday or Tuesday. His new book is amazing. Well, I haven't received a copy of it, but like the write up, just like it just looks like it's like the book that everyone needs. And I'm trying to pull up the exact title so I don't get it wrong. But how rights went wrong. Why our obsession with rights is tearing America apart. So I think this is like a
That's very
really
Marianne Glendon of him.
right. I kind of was like, I was very surprised. I also just feel like Jamal is like just a very even-handed person, and so this was like a very bombastic title, and I'm just kind of like interesting how he got there. So yeah, that was kind of that was just kind of, I'm very excited about that. Yeah, so I will ask him totally. Is there anyone else that comes to mind?
Um, I have a bunch of notes at home, but I won't
I
see
know.
them until tomorrow. Let's work on these, and we'll. Rosa Brooks, Steve Wilkerson is on my list at home. I remember that. So let's do some work on those. Ooh,
Okay.
Tony Kava wants Mael Sadani to come back.
Oh,
That
that would be amazing.
is that on anything in particular, or is that just a pro Mael Sadani
I'm pro male
point?
Sedani. I
I'm
also
pro
feel
Mael
like,
Sadani too,
yep.
but sometimes there are some very specific subjects that she's and Elizabeth Newman is also on my list. I would love to have May back, and Elizabeth Newman is on my list. I will add May to it. May is, among other things, a good friend and should be pretty easy to remain to book again.
I've also tried to book for Nina Tolson, who is amazing, a law professor, and who has been requested multiple times. We're working on that. She's very busy. And then there were like a few other people that I feel like were kind of like people that we were like in touch with and had been like trying to find a time. Let me look at my Twitter DMs for 1 second. There's, I don't know. Let's see. Okay. Oh, interesting. I'm not in my DMs. I'm in another set of DMs. Okay. Okay. Um,
I have just texted May,
oh, good.
and we will try to get her on.
Oh, I was going to say, Paige Harden, who is a good friend and who has a book coming out. John is thumbs upping me as I say this. But she has a book coming out and she has been getting trolled hard by some people for her book. But she is a psychologist. She's excellent. She's at University of Texas. And she has a book coming out. What's the name of her book, John? No, you don't know. I can't. I'm like trying to find it too. Shoot. Anyways, she has a book coming out that she does like a lot of stuff about behavior and genetics, and so she typically gets like kind of dragged by people who think that she's like a eugenicist, and she's not at all, and like is actually very progressive. And she has this book coming out, so hopefully maybe we can get her to talk about this. I cannot find the name of her. My internet is so slow today, it's like debilitating.
The internet at the cabin in the woods is just fine.
Wow, maybe I think it takes a lot to run I think it takes a lot to run the program, like all of the live streams all from your computer. I think it's taking up like a shit ton of CPU right now. And
Zuni
memory.
asks about Rebecca Nagel. She did respond and couldn't do it then, and I don't know what she's up to these days, but I would love to have her on. I thought her podcast on what became the McGirt case was pretty fabulous and interesting, so I would love to have her on. And yes, Ducks with Pants, I am sapping Kate's internet. I'm dragging out the bandwidth to the cabin in the woods.
Oh,
Um,
Paige's book is called The Genetic Lottery: Why DNA Matters for Social Equality. And yes, hold on, I'll drop the link for it in the chat. But yeah, so this would be like a really super show.
Tom Etzel, Daniel is a great idea. I know you have requested him before. He is also an old colleague from when we were both at the Washington Post, and he used to coach the Washington Post softball team that I was on. And he's a very fun guy and very interesting, and I would love to have him on, and I will put him on my list of people to get.
Oh, Katie Fang got mentioned.
I have texted Katie Fang in response to that. Katie has been on the show before. She is the best dressed person ever to come on in lieu of fun. The only person who ever wore, well, John Bordeaux was not a guest. He was a member of the Greek chorus. But Katie Fang showed this show the respect it deserves. She wore a cocktail dress on in lieu of fun, and we should have her back. It's a good week to have her back. She's Southern Korean American, and I think it's be a very interesting time to talk to her.
Yeah, totally.
So I have texted her. We will see what we can do on all this. And yes, Dara Lind, we should definitely have back. I want to let that percolate for another few weeks before we do it. She's been on relatively recently, and the landscape will change over the next few weeks as the Biden administration sort of develops a southern border policy, and so let's give that a little bit of time to settle.
I'm bringing in people.
All right.
But I'm listening to you also as you talk.
As to a China or North Korea expert, I have two great North Korea experts, both of whom have just gone into the administration, and so the person, those are Jung Pak and we have people. But Steph Haggart is great on North Korea, and I will, in Jung's inability to come on now, I will ask Steph if he can join us.
Oh my God, Eve brings up Kate Crawford, which is so correct. I've been meaning to say I have her new book, and we should totally have her on the show. Do you know Kate, by the way, Ben?
No, who is she?
Kate Crawford is an expert on AI. She works for Microsoft Research, and she just came out with a new book, which I have over here. I think I got like a very kind of new brand, like the one of the first. I think I got a copy of it before Kate got a copy of it. But it is an incredible summary of talking about AI, and
Lovely. Let's do that.
yeah, it would be great to have her on. That's a great idea. I will ask her. Okay. Let's go to
David
Fubar.
Botts, one quick
ahead.
point. Virginia Heffernan will next come on the show when she and I release the project that we've been working on together, which will be, I believe, April 6th.
Oh, what's the project you guys have been working on together?
Since Virginia has announced it, I have no reservation about saying we are working on a podcast together about the Jack Goldsmith, Bob Bauer book After Trump.
Oh, cool. Oh, that's fun. I am such a fan of like these derivative kind of like podcasts, commentaries on like it like so enhances my understanding of some of these core primary materials. I think it's fun. And like, as you know, for me having talked to you today about A French Village. Oh, by the way, Ben, I rewatched, I did get through, they're just all streaming together when I was watching them last night. So I just kind of lost track of like when one started and the other began. But I had gotten all the way through episode 3 of A French Village. And so now tonight, after we hang up, I'm going to put on episode 1 of the podcast, and then I'm going to finish episode 4 of A French Village, and then I'm going to listen to episode 2 of your podcast with Sarah.
There you go.
But okay, am I allowed to talk about A French Village on here, or is it just about is it only if Sarah's here?
I don't think there's a rule against talking about it. It's just us. We can talk about whatever the fuck we want.
Okay, so I have a question. So we were talking about when like that scene where they come in and the school teacher's sitting there and the Nazis are questioning her, and the first question they ask is like, "Are you Jewish?" And she's like kind of looks around, she's like, "What?" And like, "What's going on?" And then they like there's like this whole other kind of like insane.
But it's not the Nazis who are questioning her. It's the French Pétainist bureaucrats.
Exactly. And it took me a second. I think I just assumed that it was like, but it's not. It's like that's exactly right. And so there was that, and there were like a couple other. There was also something really specific about that moment that I think like really hit me. That it was like the idea that they were bringing her in to blame her for the shooting of all of the children. And that was also kind of like just kind of baffling to me. I just kind of think about if something like this happened nowadays, I was like, this is just would have been such like I didn't know how to make sense of it in my head. There felt no close analogy.
So as I explained in the podcast, the film on this point is extremely accurate. So this is in October of 1940. The Vichy order dismissing Jews from the civil service, the press, and the teachings corps is, I believe, October 3rd of 1940. It was not done under Nazi coercion. It was French policy. The Vichy government initiated its own anti-Semitic policies almost immediately upon voting Pétain essentially absolute power, and so the film is accurately depicting the time when this principal of the school would have been dismissed and the reason, the movie, the show is clear that this is sometime in October because it is before the next episode, which takes place on November 11th, which is a sort of sacred day in the French calendar. And so it's actually quite an accurate picture of Vichy policy. And generally speaking, it's a good rule of thumb with the Vichy government that everything done between 1940 and 1942 is kind of French initiated. And after that, they become much more of a puppet government for the Nazis. And the Nazis sort of compel them to do a bunch of things. But this is a very accurate account of what would have happened, to a sort of integrated. So we know from her later date with the police chief that she eats pork. So she's a highly integrated French Jewish civil servant. And this is, I think, a very plausible portrait of what would have happened to her and when it would have happened.
Yeah. I mean, the whole stealing of the ham thing seems almost like, okay, I have to go back and finish watching season 3 because I have trouble sitting still, and so I wandered away and missed a bunch of the subtitles. But there's like the stealing of the ham thing seems to be very symbolic in a lot of ways. I mean, not just for stealing like something that's very valuable, but the fact that it's ham seems very significant and kind of has symbolicism. Or do you not think so? Am I reading too much into it?
It has symbolic importance when you see Jews eating it.
Okay.
And that's a tell as to their level of religiosity. I don't think it has any, I mean, it's a sort of very traditional part of, a rural French diet. So I don't think it has a symbolism beyond that, except that it's a luxury item. And, but certainly in the scene in which I think is in the next episode that you haven't watched yet, where she has a dinner date with the police chief who gives her this place to live, and they have dinner together, and there's ham served at that dinner. I do think it's like they're telling you something about her. Yeah. Oh, no, not a test. It's just information about her, that she's an entirely secularized Jew. And she does ask later whether she should declare herself as a Jew, which is, again, something that somebody who was religiously practicing wouldn't have a question about because they're visibly different. But if you're integrated enough, you have to decide, hey, should I comply with this? And I think they're using a lot of clever little symbols about like giving you little pieces of information about where people are in the religiously committed versus integrated in French life axes.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Fubar, nice to see you.
Hello.
How are you?
Doing well. How about you?
Good.
So
I was curious about your question. I wanted to hear more about it.
Yeah. So my question for you, Kate, is I don't know if you follow the Fire's list of top like the 10 worst colleges for free speech, but St. John's was on there. And so my question to you is, do you feel stifled? Do you feel like your free speech rights are being violated? And also, if you can talk about why Cornell Tech is so much a better college than St. John's.
But wait,
what is so much better college?
Why is St. John's University?
That's what I wanted to know.
Listed as a bad news for free speech?
Yeah,
I have no idea.
But it was.
And are you sure it's St. John's University, not St. John's College?
That's the other question that I had.
Oh, might have been. Okay, I may have got that wrong then.
No. It's actually I don't beat yourself up over that. People may make that mistake all the time. But I would be super interested to know. There is also something that I've been kind of battling, and I would like people's. I was interested in asking you, like bringing you on to ask this, because in specific, there has been in our faculty lounge these monthly pamphlets that are published by. Let me see. They're published, it's called Catalyst. It's the Journal of Catholic League for Religious and Civil Rights. And my favorite to date was this one showed up, and it says, I took a picture of the cover. I don't know if you can see it, But over on the corner there, it says victory over Twitter. And I will read you the Catalyst's victory over Twitter. 3 hours after we listed the email address of a key official at Twitter asking our subscribers to protest its decision to freeze an account of a Catholic media outlet, Twitter reversed itself and unlocked the account. This was a major victory for free speech. That is the article. There's a little bit more in between, but like that's like basically the article. And I'm just kind of baffled that this is something that's in my faculty lounge. And I'm like, do I bring this up to my dean or do I just like let this go and not mention anything about this? Like this is problematic. This says like how the ruling class fueled the Capitol riot, and it's like 3 columns. Like, I mean, like it's just crazy kind of, and it's all Larry Flint was no free speech hero, Maoist roots of deprogramming. Like, yeah, right. And so I'm like, kind of like, this is a little nuts. And like, this is just this pamphlet that's hanging in our faculty lounge. And like, on the one hand, I don't think anyone reads it. I know this only because it gets delivered in like rubber bands, and like the rubber bands look like they have never been stretched, and the same number appear to always remain in piles in like the faculty lounge. But that being said, it feels like a weird thing that we get delivered to our faculty lounge. But but I believe in free speech, so they can keep doing it, I guess. I don't know.
Yes, so I checked. It was St. John's University, and it's because they removed adjunct professor Richard Taylor from the classroom after finding him in violation of the anti-bias policy.
Interesting.
Is that an incident you know anything about?
No,
and it's St. John's, and it's St. John's University, not St. John's College.
Yep, at St. John's University.
No, and I am at St. John's University, but like I've like literally never been into the university. I mean, like the law school's on the university, but I just like I've never been even like I don't even wander over to like campus or like main campus where the green is. I would say that like generally speaking, right now, universities have their work cut out for them in terms of like trying to meet various kinds of floating biases and have both a full expression of ideas and then also trying to be sensitive to other people's sensitivities and also kind of like give like a full picture of everything. So I'm like totally surprised, but that I don't know anything about that incident in particular. Ben?
Sorry, Fubar. Can't help you.
All right.
And I have a couple of guest suggestions.
I saw those. We'll deal with those later. But like right now, we're just going to do questions and just like do hang up. But it was great to see you, Fubar. Bye. Okay, let me see. Guess who I have next?
I don't know. It's Auntie.
Hi, Auntie. Oh no, you're muted. Let me unmute you.
Oh.
Hi. I'm constantly like, why isn't he magically unmuted? Why isn't he just appearing on the screen? Because I thought in my brain, Auntie, it's time for Auntie to appear. And then I'm like, oh, fuck me. I have to like actually click the buttons because I'm in charge.
I just want to point out that Auntie has a very sort of Daniel-like vibe going here. The black shirt against the black background. Now you just need the black chair, and you'll have like a full Daniel costume.
Yeah, but that's what you want.
well, sort of, I guess. But you know, Daniel's Daniel, and I would never try to infringe on the Danielness of Daniel. So
I think that's probably wise, especially because you'd have to replace your chair.
I mean, heaven forbid.
Auntie, it's been a minute. How are you doing?
Well, I'm getting pretty tired of COVID.
Yeah?
Yeah.
How is COVID in Finland?
Well, actually, it's gotten a bit worse in the last 2 months or so. I mean, we have about little less than 900 cases daily. That's kind of the top. But where I live, there's like in this region, there's 5 to 10 new cases every day, so it's really not bad. But the whole number keeps the atmosphere a bit down.
Yeah.
And how's vaccination going?
I think it's about 12% or something like that. I mean,
So it's not bad.
No, it's not bad, but it's quite slow still. I mean,
It's
they
slower
predict
than I'd expect. for
yeah,
you guys.
yeah. They predict it'll be like August or something for the 70% of herd immunity vaccination level to be achieved. So it'll be
And
a bit while.
has there been dancing in the streets in Finland over you guys winning for the fourth year in a row the happiest country in the world award?
Well, no, because that would naturally be against all the policies or recommendations in place with regard to COVID. So, I mean, well, there was a demonstration about 400 people in Helsinki about COVID or, the restrictions to movement and stuff like that. But those are, the guys that are a little bit...
True Finns?
Yeah, I think the worst of them, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Interesting. So, Auntie, what is your question?
Well, actually, before I go to my question, I wanted to ask. I wanted to go rogue on you guys. So, like, you talked a great deal about the French Village. Have either of you guys seen Babylon Berlin?
I have, yes.
No.
Isn't that just the most fabulous depiction of Weimar Germany?
So I thought the first couple seasons of it were fabulous and just an incredible portrait of late Weimar in particular.
Yeah.
I thought the last season it kind of fell apart, but I did love the first two seasons.
I'm
Right.
assuming Babylon Berlin is very different from Babylon 5.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Does anyone want to tell me what Babylon Berlin is about?
It is a
John's
cop
laughing at
show.
me again.
It's a cop show about Berlin in probably 1928, 1929, and it is just gorgeously well researched in terms of all kinds of social history, and amazingly well acted across the board, and just an amazing picture of the late Roaring '20s in a failing democracy. It's an amazing piece of work.
Okay,
Yeah,
that sounds great.
I agree.
I will check it out. Have you guys seen Hercule Poirot? Have you ever watched this on the BBC or anything? No.
Nope.
The Agatha Christie miniseries, David Suchet, 1920s England.
Oh, right. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
That's
Fantastic.
fantastic.
Yeah. Right. And it's also like, I was just going to say, it's funny because I've been rewatching that. And so it'd be fascinating to watch the same era in Weimar, Germany. Like, that would be like kind of an amazing contrast with what was going on. Because there's like these distant figures in the background in the UK at that time that kind of like make their way into like the thing. It'd be fascinating to kind of see that play out. Anyways, Auntie, what is your question?
So, Ben, how confident are you on the successful conclusion of the DHS litigation you have going on?
I am 100% confident that we will get some degree of production. There's no plausible, lawful basis for them to refuse to give us anything. I don't know what the volume of actual material there is, so I suppose they could give us a lot of a very small set if there's less surveillance than I expect. So I'm less confident that I will get a lot that is interesting or valuable, but there's no way we don't force them to release material. This is a situation where they did at least 2 intelligence reports that they acknowledged to be improper. And I am the subject of one of them. I don't think there's any plausible basis for them to say, no, we're not going to give you the material about what we acknowledge to be erroneous filings of reports about you. I do think the interesting question is how much we get about protesters. And my working hypothesis is that there is a lot of such material, but I don't know that to be true. And so I suppose it is possible that a fair bit of the material that I'm trying to get doesn't exist. I think at a minimum we will find out how much of it exists, because they are obliged to tell you what documents have been produced, what have been withheld. And so I do think at a minimum we will get a sense of the landscape of what the prior administration was using DHS to do. So that's, look, we've had, it's been a few days since we filed the suit. We will keep you all posted about what happens. I'm very confident we're going to learn a lot.
All right. Auntie, it was great to see you again. It's been a minute. Don't be such a stranger. Stay up late with us. The sun's coming back. The sun's coming back.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. When do you go? I guess we lost the chance to ask Auntie a question.
Oh, sorry. I'll bring him back. Oh, Eric Berg's here. Eric, hold on 1 second. I'm having trouble being.
So here's my question for Auntie when you come back, when you pop back on. How long will it be before Finland's days are longer than New York / Washington days? So what time is the sun setting in Finland? I mean, by now, is it already happening? Where the sun's setting, that your days are longer than ours, or do you have to wait till sort of April, May, June for that to happen?
Actually, right this day, I think our night and day are exactly the same length.
Okay,
yeah,
so we're still long.
Yeah.
It's the spring solstice tomorrow or today, whichever happens.
Yeah.
So we're still longer than you. For another few weeks.
Yeah.
And then you guys, and the longest days you guys have is what? About 20 hours of daylight?
I think it's like most of the day is daylight. Well, when you go to Lapland, obviously, but even at our, sort of western central Finland, it's most of the day is light. So going to sleep will be a bit difficult over the summer, but that's half the fun.
When I was in Kungsbacka, it was in June, and at 3 o'clock in the morning, I would go to the bar, and I would go like at 3 o'clock in the morning, it would just be like bright, the sun would be coming up, and it was like completely nuts. And like, I was really jet lagged. And so even after I got like adjusted to the jet lag, I would get up to go to the bathroom at like 3 o'clock in the morning, and the sun would be bright and out and shining. And it felt like 6 or 7 a.m. And obviously everyone has really heavy shades in all the windows, and everyone like deals with this. And this is like, no one even thinks that much of it. And it's like I would say if anything, that people think that it's are very dismissive of how disconcerting it is.
Well, we're all a bit nuts here in Scandinavia, so don't worry about it.
I got this little guy at a little shop this was in Stockholm. And it is a little tiny hedgehog that is made of little tiny. See this little tiny hedgehog?
Yeah,
and it has a little tiny hedgehog inside each of the little tiny hedgehogs. And then they all like come out, and my dad, I bought this, and my dad was like, that weighs like
Right.
20 pounds. Why did you buy that? And it's coming back with us. But anyway.
That's like the Swedish version of those Russian wooden.
Nesting dolls, yeah.
Yeah.
I liked it quite a bit. Anyway. So
Okay.
It was good to see you, Auntie.
Cool. You too.
Bye.
See ya.
Okay.
Don't forget Eric Berg.
I'm not forgetting him. Hi, Richard.
You got to unmute Richard.
I'm unmuting him. Don't tell me what to do.
I'm not
Hi,
Eric.
Richard.
I don't think I am.
No. Hi.
Hi. Before I get to my question, I have a beef about the French Village. So now I guess, I don't know, Ben, you're probably not as far along as I am. I'm like at episode 9 or so.
I've only gotten to through the episodes of the podcast,
Okay,
so I've done the first 6.
This isn't a spoiler, but I don't think that there's. I know it's not, but they play string quartets. There's a number of them are getting together playing string quartets. And it is the most poorly researched part of the whole show because the way they're holding the instruments, it looks like you're looking at an orchestra of 7-year-old beginners just trying to figure out how to hold a violin and things. And, it just totally, destroyed the suspension of disbelief. I don't know if you can go on.
I would say that is a shame. They should have gotten that right. They've gotten a lot of stuff right.
Yeah.
It would be a shame if... and by the way, it is possible to have actors play instruments realistically if...
Yeah.
There's a fabulous French movie about violin makers and mechanics who fix violins called Un Coeur en Hiver, and which has Emmanuelle Béart when she was very young as a violinist, and she is completely believable playing very specific pieces. There's a scene in which she plays the whole movie is set to Ravel, and it's all chamber music because she's a chamber music player. And you actually, some of the scenes you have to work to tell that it's dubbed. And so this is a doable thing, and I agree with Richard. I have not gotten to the scenes that are implausible visually for the music, but I agree with Richard that if you're going to get the make and model of the Nazi tank right, get the violin playing right too.
I have a question. Richard. So one of my good friends, I want to know if this is a person that we should invite on. This is one of the people that I grew up with when I was a kid. He is the older brother of one of my good friends. His name is Ward Stair. He is a conductor. He is now, I think he was, or he just did a stint at the New York Metropolitan Opera. Yeah. But previously he left Juilliard as a principal trombone to take the principal trombonist seat at 19 at the Chicago Opera, and then went from there on to become the St. Louis conductor for St. Louis Orchestra, and then now his return to Rochester, where our family is obviously, and he is the principal at the Philharmonic in Rochester. Anyways, he's like, this little shit introduced me to It, the Stephen King movie, and gave me nightmares for like 3 years because I basically, I was having a sleepover at my friend Stephanie's house, and he was up with his friend Brad, and they were watching this horror movie, and they were like, no, Kate, stay up with us. And I was like, okay. And anyways, he just gave me so I will have to call him on that in person at some point. But also, I was just wondering, does he seem like, I don't know. I mean, he seems very fancy, all of these things that he's done, and he has always been an incredible musician. But this seems objectively like maybe we should have him on to talk about being a conductor.
Yeah, I mean, when you're talking about people who are even on the conducting staffs of major institutions. But, these are top flight musicians, and you don't get there because you're a slouch. I mean, you're no slouch if you get there. I mean,
conducting is very, very hard.
Yep.
Well, I just remember him saying, like, in high school, he graduated from high school early, and then he went to Juilliard, and then he never graduated from college. And I remember my parents almost saying it in this way of, like, isn't it embarrassing that Ward hasn't graduated from college? Like,
not from Juilliard, it's not.
Yeah, exactly. And didn't take this, like, Chicago opera, took this stint at the Chicago Opera, and I'm like, I don't think it works like that for everyone, Mom. I don't think it's all about graduating from college for everybody. Like,
yeah, especially in the musical world, there are a lot of people who, just so gifted they, might spend a little bit of time at university and then they're off to starting their careers. So.
If we get him to come on, will you help us interview him? It would be wonderful to have you on to ask some questions. It would be so great.
Sure.
Okay.
I can ask questions. So,
great.
I just was going to say regarding the making the string playing look realistic. And if you saw the movie Late Quartet with Christopher Walken, actually, and he's playing the cello there, and he actually looks very convincing as a cellist on that. So it's doable.
It is doable. I mean, and if a director cares and the actors care to do it and they hire the right musical consultants, it can be done. You just have to care as much as you care about, say, whether your French Village looks like a period French village, and right, it's like all of these things are doable if you want to do them, and all of them can slack if you let them slack.
So
yeah.
All right.
Excuse me,
Richard. I love your question.
Okay. Well, so here goes. So we know that China tried to suppress the news of COVID when it came out. And we also know that they've been cooperative and uncooperative alternately over the time that since this broke. So I'm curious, why is it even in China's interest not to be transparent as far as a worldwide pandemic is concerned? And should we expect some new diplomatic efforts to secure agreement about reporting when these sorts of things break in the future? Because it's not just going to happen in China.
Yeah, I think this is an easy question. And
really?
Yes, I think China's interests are, if you evaluate them rationally from our perspective, of course the premise of your question is right. But if you put regime survival and stability as the key interest, and subordinate everything else to that, the calculation seems to be, hey, we can get it under control domestically using principally coercion and repression. And by the way, they've been relatively successful at that after an initial terrible outcome. And we can vaccinate a little bit more slowly because we can keep it under control using other means. By the way, the other major countries that disease vectors are likely to emerge in are going to be quite transparent for reasons of their own, for all the Richard reasons. And so we can be free riders off of their transparency. We'll be transparent if a disease emerges in the United States because we have obligations to Europe and South America, and if a disease emerges in Europe, they're going to be transparent for the same reason. And so why is it really in China's interest to behave the way you described? They get all the benefits of it with none of the embarrassment and threat to regime stability. just like on a bunch of other issues where they free ride off of international norms that they don't respect.
So Ben said this was an easy question, and Ben said everything that I was going to say, but I thought it was a hard question.
Yeah.
And I think that I think that there is something, like, the reason that it's a hard, well, the reason it's, what the easy part of the question is when you just flip the lens and you realize that China gives zero fucks about what anyone else thinks about how it's telling the truth. Right. And so, like, it does not care that the rest of the world thinks that it hid news about COVID. What matters to China is what people inside China think about, like, how they hate how they depicted COVID and the reality of what COVID is in their country right now. And even that, they don't have to really, it doesn't have to really be accurate. It could be whatever it is that they're saying that it is. And so that is kind of like the entire kind of, I don't know. That's entirely what Ben said, but it's just kind of like, I think that is like a more interesting, I think that's a hard question in the sense that I think that it's a hard question to determine in such a regime what truth is and how you ever judge truth, except in individual experience and circumstances and with other trusted people.
I think the only surprising thing about China's response to the virus is that they were actually able to get it under control by the means that they did. And if you had told me a year ago, or a year and 4 months ago, how COVID was going to start, what would happen, I would have said, I would have predicted everything through February of last year. That they would cover it up, they would, and I would have gotten everything after February with respect to China wrong, because I wouldn't have believed you could do this by repression. And I find it really upsetting, by the way, that you can.
Yeah. I mean, it's a terrible A/B test for like liberty. Like, it's
exactly.
Like a terrible A/B test for liberty.
Oh yeah.
But I'm sure that the CCP's internal reaction to this is, we got some bad local apples, off with their heads, but basically the system worked just fine, particularly compared to those decadent, liberty-loving people in the Western Hemisphere. Fuck them. That's going to be their, and by the way, the data doesn't necessarily contradict them on this, and so
you don't even have to bend the facts. The facts actually support you.
Yeah, or at least, I'm sure the situation I'm sure there were many more deaths than they've reported in that initial wave.
Yes.
And I'm sure also that the situation now isn't quite as under control as they portray it. I don't believe they're having, 100 cases a day. But their cities are basically open. They're largely functioning pretty normally, which means the virus is largely under control. And that is a huge accomplishment by very sinister means. And so I do think they get some creepy bragging rights here.
1 year ago today, I was showing in my information privacy class a viral video that was going around that was of a drone in China that was flying around screaming at people in Chinese. It was run by the Chinese state, screaming. I don't know if you remember this circulating. Yeah. And screaming at people like, why are you outside your house? Haven't you heard about the quarantine? Go inside and wash your hands, and like things like that. And it was just kind of like this and like, I remember watching it and my students were like, this is bonkers. We've never seen, like, what a crazy authoritarian surveillance state. This is so crazy. So the idea that now all of my students are still in masks and still like literally I must get, and this is like, I'm not making light of this at all. This is like incredibly tragic. I must get 2 emails a week from students who have to take time off to go to funerals. Like, that there is just like this crazy amount of like death and destruction. And it's like, I am the most liberty loving person, but like, you just have to kind of be like, ugh, like they stemmed a tide. At least we think they did. We have no idea of like really knowing what's happening, but yes.
Yeah, I guess the thing that puzzled me, the other part of it that puzzled me is there any way that they can experience any sort of international blowback, at least if this happens again in the future. There was they paid no cost, they paid nothing internationally for this.
Yeah. I'll let Ben answer that, and then we're going to go to Eric, but it was great talking to you, Richard.
No, I think that's right. They paid no cost for this.
They paid no cost for it. I agree.
And, while nobody should believe the bullshit about this developing in a Chinese lab, it is the case that it developed in China. They had a lot of foreknowledge of, relative to the rest of the world, of what was going on. They shared almost nothing. And a huge number of people around the world have died because of it. And that's exactly what you would expect from the CCP. But it's still unacceptable.
Yeah. I mean, well, this is like another conversation for another time, but I would be really eager to have Jack Goldsmith on, because one of the things that Jack talked about in his book with Tim Wu, who just, was appointed to the Biden administration, was basically this idea of like the internet coming down to a set of kind of like the control over the internet basically becoming a proxy for other types of like nation state power, like asserting itself. And I do feel like that is starting. I mean, it's been happening for a long time, but I think that like the lines are really starting to solidify themselves. And I would just be fascinated to hear kind of like Jack talk about that at some point. But we lost Eric Berg. I don't know where. I tried to bring him in like 3 or 4 times and it disappeared. So I'm so sorry, Eric. I didn't mean to do that. I love hearing from you, but we're over anyway. So we're going to end here. Ben, go enjoy your fire.
I'm going to sit by the fire. I'm going to
oh my gosh.
Move the it's just I'm just going to let us go out on the fire here.
You're making me miss country living. That's like all of it. Look at that deck that supports human weight. That's amazing. Look at that deck.
Yeah. And look, we got a nice view.
I know, it's lovely. Cabin in the Woods is beautiful. I'm glad that you're getting to enjoy it with Tammy. This is great.
And I'm not going to blow up the computer.
Oh my god!
With a cannon. My God.
Do you remember when you blew up the computer with a cannon?
I still have a broken computer.
We should start making a list for our viewers to like start talking about their top 25 like in lieu of fun moments, top 10 in lieu of fun moments, and then we can try to compile them into a video of some sort. But that would be pretty. That has to be like number 1, I would think.
Certainly one of them, although it was the most expensive moment on it. Just in terms of, that was not like my best moment.
It was pretty sad. We will be back 22 hours and 48 minutes from now, and until then we don't have fun anymore, but we do have wood burning fires right next to us.
We do.
Sounds pretty great.
I'm gonna have a mystery guest for you tomorrow, Kate.
Yeah, I know you have to have a mystery guest for me.
I'm going to.
Okay, good. Who is it?
All right, I'm not going to tell you.